right. Welcome to the With CP podcast, where we talk about what is going on with CP. No, or we bring you along with CP, right, Ben?
Yes,
I feel like I
yes.
introduce this differently every single time. I'm Charles Douglas. I'm the executive director of Common Power.
And I'm Binh Truong. I'm the Fieldwork Senior Program Manager here.
And
I
today we're
am.
gonna, oh,
Am
sorry.
I
Who
supposed
are
to
you?
introduce myself or is that too early?
Yeah, no, go ahead,
No?
jump in.
No, yeah? Okay, I'm Puya. I work with Ben and Charles. And I am a fieldwork associate at Compower, run our state team program.
Okay, so Puya works in fieldwork. We're fieldwork heavy right now. And there's good reason for that because we got to talk about what the heck to do with what's been going on lately. And oh my goodness, a lot going on. It's too much. It's too much going on. We are going to dig into some of the aftermath of the aftermath a little bit. But first, how's everybody entering the space today?
I feel like I can
Ben?
go first. Yeah. Um, I am tired. I feel like I have willfully distanced myself from the news because I keep
Mm,
seeing the same headlines, like written multiple ways.
lucky.
You know what I mean? Willpower, not luck. And
Mm,
so I've been doing that, but I've been keeping abreast of like certain things for sure. And just throwing myself into work, right? And so feeling a little tired, but definitely like I don't know if like gritty is like a is like a feeling you can
pretty?
have. Yeah, like
Yeah, that's you.
okay. Oh, okay.
That's kind of your personality, though. So I don't know if that's like a state.
I'm gonna let that comment slide. Okay, so we just
It's a compliment. Okay. Puya.
go ahead.
Okay. I'm kind of on the same boat of being tired. Where there's just a lot happening and you're just trying to keep up, but try to also focus and continue with the work. So, yeah, and honestly, I was out a week, so a lot of things got pushed around my schedule. So I'm kind of still in catch-up mode to some extent. Um, so on one hand, it is nice to be able to have every day dedicated to the work, and yeah, but I am feeling tired a little bit.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to make it three because I am also feeling a little tired. I think that we've basically been on watch since Thursday. Like it really has been. It's been the debate and then the fallout from the debate and like monitoring the airwaves. I think we've been working on our regular work, but then also a lot of responding to how the community is feeling right now. And reading more news than we normally read, except for Ben. Except for Ben. Again, you says willpower. Lucky that you don't have to. How about that? Um, and and then some strategizing about like what to do with this. So, um, in the midst of all of that, well, I think most of us have been here. Where is CP? CP is largely in Seattle, not traveling. But where are we right now? Where else are we? Ben?
We are about to be in Phoenix again. This is our third and last summer trip, organized to Phoenix, Arizona for the primaries happening down there. And there's a team of about 8 to 9 people leaving tomorrow. So they're going to be there
All
all the way
right.
through Tuesday, joined by one of our wonderful staff members and colleague, Jordan, in Phoenix herself. So that's going to be really fun. And they've been there since May. They've been doing a trip since yeah, every month since May.
Okay. And you've been vacation for a week, right? So welcome back. This is one of the
Thank
reasons why
you.
David was here with me on the pod last week, right after the debate, and you weren't, is because you got some good rest. So welcome back from your trip to the East Coast.
Thank you. And
Um,
maybe that's why I'm
and
not reading the news, because I'm on vacation.
that's right, you got a real break. Wow. Okay. Good. Recharge and duck some of the stuff that we're going through over here. Okay. So let's dig into this. It's so funny as we've been getting ready to talk about this. I'm kind of dreading it a little bit, just to be honest, just just because we've been in it. Um, so just a recap: the debate was on Thursday. It was not a good debate in general. It's not a good debate in general. Joe Biden, obviously, we all know he did terribly. Um, and Donald Trump was just terrible also, but tougher to discern because he was less terrible than usual, maybe still a liar and everything else, but not as crazy as we've seen him. Everything overshadowed by Biden's performance and the fallout from people um, high up in the Democratic structure, donors, strategists that are now calling for him to step down. Um, day after, the day after Thursday, the Supreme Court decisions come out, and basically, well, I mean, they're all over the place, but they basically lay the groundwork for Trump to do whatever he wants in the federal government and have the courts maintain a bunch of power or gain a bunch of new power over American lives. Somebody said that the justices are basically um, six unelected legislators that are deciding what we're going to be doing in this country and the rights that we're going to have. So that's Friday, and then Monday is the big immunity decision, and that's the coup de grace right there. That's the thing that says that not only can Trump be, he's basically off the hook for what he did on January 6th and other things. He also, should he win, which is what they're planning, should he win the election, he's going to be able to do whatever he wants. That coupled with Project 2025 and the decisions on Friday all prep him to basically be an authoritarian. If you are listening to this podcast, you're also somebody who reads and listens to other podcasts, and you know all of this already. One of the reasons why we're bringing Puya in is because Puya, you've got a bunch of insights on the Supreme Court, but you also manage our volunteer leads and you kind of message the community as we went along. So what was your first, you sent me a note the night of the debate and you're like, Charles, you should send a message to the community. I was writing one and I decided not to. And I think that that's your space to do that. And I said, dude, if you have something written that you feel passionate about, you should be the one to drop it in the Slack. In our community group, shout out to our community Slack that we've got. You should be one to drop it in, and you wrote this beautiful piece. Can you summarize it? I know it feels like old news now, but can you summarize what you said there?
Yeah. I think after the debate ended, we were obviously at Stoop doing our watch party. Um, I think there was a sense of like, okay, yeah, this was not a good debate. You could see people feeling anxious, and I think going on social media and seeing how people are reacting, um, I felt like there needs to be something said. We can't just let people sit with anxiousness and go on social media. So that's where I was like, I should say something. And then I was like, well, Charles Fritz really put together messages, so maybe he should write something. And with your position on how people view when you write something in the community hub and things of that nature. But what I
Well, can
essentially
I
wrote
let me
was,
jump in one second? So you're at the debate watch party and you are actively thinking about some of our volunteers who are there and you're
Mhm,
listening to their feedback. And so
mhm,
what is inspiring you to write this thing is you're looking at people who some team leads, right? So these are people who are going to
mhm,
lead dozens of people, hundreds of people
mhm,
out into the field,
mhm.
and they're there watching and they're pretty distraught. So as a leader in our organization and someone responsible for their morale, you're thinking about what they need to hear right now, right?
Exactly right. There was this sense that um, letting people sit with this anxiety is unproductive, and it is going to just bring the morale down. And if here at Common Power, we're trying to give people an avenue to get some hope, where it is going to be different, where it's not going to just be all everything's on fire, but give people an avenue to take action and do something with that anxiety. I think it was just, I felt like I have to say something, where it's unfair to let people go to sleep feeling anxious. So even though it was coming a little bit later at night, I think I wrote it like at 10 p.m. I don't know how many people necessarily saw it that night, or maybe saw it in the morning. I just want to get it out though. Essentially, what I mentioned in that message was, debate did not help with your anxiety, because people who are part of our community are already aware of the dynamics, knew the stakes, and realize that Biden is older, he is 81, so there are conversations around his age, how well he's going to do in debates, all of those things. So I recognize that, yes, this debate did not help. But that's not what we do at Common Power. We don't sit around worrying about, oh, this didn't go well, this isn't not working out. And we immediately think about action. Because sitting down, worrying, talking about things, and leaving it at that doesn't change anything. It is very easy to do that. The hard part is, okay, what am I going to do about this situation? Something that I'm not happy with, what am I going to do about it? So I brought in a message around something that really pissed me off earlier that week, which was the president of the Heritage Foundation talking about how they want to institutionalize Trumpism as a new form of conservatism. I shared that with our staff on Tuesday of that week, and it was something that was sitting in my mind. And it is very, very easy in those moments to think, I just hate Trump. I just hate this person. And I know a lot of people feel that way. And at moments I have those feelings as well. But I was thinking about our training that we did with Dr. Lafayette just like 2 weeks ago, right? When we were down in Auburn, Alabama.
Nonviolence training.
The nonviolence training we did with him. And I still have the handbook in my backpack. Like I carried with me. I just opened it up, and it was the message around the 6 principles of nonviolence. And the one that I asked a question about when we met with him and highlighted was the 3rd principle of act forces of evil, not people doing evil or persons doing evil.
Yeah.
So for me, it was that connection of, if it's institutionalizing Trumpism, then it's bigger than Trump.
Yeah, and let's go down that road a little bit more, because like you were focused on the morale when you sent that message as your intention, but morale took a second hit, right? With the Supreme Court decision that came out, and you sent another message. And I think in that one, it was even more clear to what you're saying about like, we have to fight this as an institution and not just a man. And so can you talk a little bit more about the second message you sent then in response to the Supreme Court decision, and what was different for you in the contents of those messages? Because you didn't say the same thing as you did your first message, right? So what was that like when you did that?
Yeah, I think the second message was an acknowledgement of feeling frustrated, first of all. I think the Trump decision is perhaps one of the worst decisions the Supreme Court has had in a while. One of its most extreme decisions since perhaps Dobbs. As I mentioned, like with the recent work, it is a pretty high bar to clear. Like it is very difficult.
The Trump decision. You called it the Trump decision just now instead of the immunity decision.
Yeah, I mean that's
Trump, right?
No, it is for Trump, and it's literally the case is Trump versus United States. Like it is literally a Trump decision, right?
True.
Yeah, and I think we need to really not call it an immunity decision, because it was designed to clear the way for Trump. First of all, for not him getting prosecuted right now, and for him to, if getting elected, to become a dictator. That's what it is. I think the second message was, if there is anybody who's going to stop Trump from becoming a dictator, is the voters. That's what it is, right? Congress can't stop him anymore. Senate is not going to stop him anymore. The Supreme Court is clearing the way for him to become a dictator. The judiciary is not going to do it. But the only thing standing in his way to become a dictator, and for his way of thinking, for Trumpism to become the new form of conservative, is voters. To tell Trump and everybody who supports that way of thinking that we reject this ideology. They did it once in 2020, they did it again in 2022, and we got to do it again.
Yeah.
We're
And you and
yeah.
I have talked a lot about this, Puya, actually, not just in the recent days after this decision, but when we talk about like why we're in this work and how we see it, we take an international lens, right? Because we're both immigrants. I'm from Vietnam, you're from Iran, and our perspective is a little bit more global than some of the analysis that I've seen. And we've said repeatedly, this podcast is not a political analysis podcast, even though Puya is really good at analyzing politics for us, and that's part of his job at Common Power. That's not the take here, right? Because you can get that take anywhere and everywhere right now. But when you and I talk, it's so much grounded in our personal experiences growing up in countries that are not democracies. And that drives so much about how we approach this work and why it's so vital and so real to us in a way that maybe it hasn't before, when this was just like democracy, little d democracy, could be anything, may have lived in it, may not be real. But now, dang, someone can be a dictator. What does that mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up under a dictatorship. I spent most of my life living under a dictatorship. So for me, it's not even like I don't even have to imagine what that's like, right? I literally experienced it. I have my father who still lives there, who experienced it every single day. I got family who lives there, who experiences every day, every single day. So, and I know the way it happened in my country. And I have studied how it has happened in other countries. And it is very, very sad to see that US is falling through the same traps. Because it comes from the same ideology of people who want to have control over others. At the end, that's what it comes down to. It can happen in different ways of like different ideologies of Trumpism, extreme religious beliefs, or whatever it may be. But what it ultimately comes down to is people who want power and control over others. And so for me to listen to people in Iran in our history um, within the past 50 years and see how the country has shifted and how people have been brainwashed and how that revolution happened in 1979, and to see this very similar things happening in US is the inspiration for me to do this work, because I wasn't born to stop that horrific revolution that happened in Iran in 79. But I've learned from my family, my uncle who was directly trying to fight that revolution and to stop it. And that's an inspiration for me to be able to say, now I have some level of control over this. So I'll be damned if I don't do everything I can to stop this one.
Is that some of what you think about when you go to write those messages? Is that you feel like that the weight of that on your shoulders just
Oh,
like driving your thumbs?
100%. I think I I mean in 2022 we were in Georgia. We were canvassing and it was just the beginning in September. And if you remember, there were protests that were happening in Iran and it was just like
Yeah.
happening at the same time, right? So yeah, whenever I'm out knocking doors, whenever I'm writing those messages, I'm not just thinking about women in Texas or Louisiana or in South Carolina where they're losing their reproductive rights. I'm thinking of women in Iran, in my home country, where they have basically no right. They're not treated as full humans, unfortunately. Um, and I see that, and I'm like, the way that women are treated in Iran did not happen overnight. It was not with one decision. It was with a series of decisions and with millions of people being unwilling to do anything about it and letting it slide further and further away to the point that they're getting killed out on the streets for just trying to say, I don't want to wear a compulsory hijab or whatever. So yeah, it is the weight of what's happening here, but also what has happened in my home country, where it drives the energy to do this work.
But so is that like a principle thing where you're saying I don't I don't want the same thing to happen here. I think and feel about the people back home when I
Mhm.
see what's happening to the people here? Or is it is it actually something that's more strategic where you're saying I want to make this country better so that the people here can help the people back home? Or is it both?
I think it's a little bit of both, but more so the first.
Okay.
I th I think it is more about the principle of it, because I know like if I want to help it to make any sort of change in my home country, I cannot do that. I physically can't. Like me going back to home, I would arrest it pretty much like on the spot probably. So I know I can't do that work. So I'm like, okay, how can I still follow that principle of making sure that women have control over their bodies? Because that's what is the conversation around as well. Or it's around freedom. It's around people having power to choose their own leaders. It's around democracy. So I think it's a lot of the same conversation, it's just in a different context, right? Um, the second part, yes, I think what happens in US impacts the rest of the world, so it does have an impact, but I'm not banking on electing certain people to necessarily feed into the protests and the work happening already in Iran, and I do not want US to directly get involved in matters happening in
Mm,
Iran either, because we know the history with US. Whenever they get involved internationally, it has not been the best experience for the people in those countries. So I would rather
mm.
actually not have US get involved. But I know that it will shape how we move forward in Iran, and it impacts people around the globe. What happens here?
Yeah. It feels a lot like gratefulness is what I'm hearing as well. Like gratefulness to have this opportunity to exercise our ability to, like, further the rights of other people, to fight for what we know is the right thing to do, because we aren't able to do that in our homes, right? And same here, like I would not move back to Vietnam and try to start a revolution or try to like move things more progressively, simply because it would take decades to even sow the seeds or even like breed ground where that can take off. And so to have the opportunity to do it here with the amazing people and the skills that we have and the willingness that we have and the opportunity to do it on such a scale and in this moment is, I think, a bit of a minor miracle, right? Like, what kind of times do you live through where you have the opportunity to actually influence something so strong? And to take a global look as well, the US is just not another country. It's not an exaggeration to say it's a superpower, right? Like, we influence so much. And the state of our politics is so, if the US becomes a dictatorship, that does not just influence our lives, right? We influence the rest of the
It's the
world's
world.
life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. And so that's what I think about when I look at this. And maybe that's why I don't watch the news, because what the news doesn't really matter at the end of the day with the analysis. We gotta win.
Hmm.
Like we gotta win. That has not changed. The margin has gotten smaller, the work has gotten harder, but it has not changed. And no amount of media narrative is gonna change that necessarily. So
Yeah. Well, and I think especially now the closer we get to an election, um the less variance there is. It is literally just about the election. Um, except for this moment. So taking it back to the current state of this, we're recording this on Wednesday, July 3rd, day before Independence Day, um, 4 p.m. Pacific. So as of right now, Joe Biden hasn't stepped down or anything, but there's growing pressure for him to step down, to come off the ticket and to support somebody else. And it's increasing. There are signals from elected officials, donors. Um, Op-eds have been written, of course, but you're starting to hear people like Nancy Pelosi, um, Jim Clyburn say things like, I would support X person or I would support somebody else. Um, and that's a growing chorus. So it's possible that we see a massive shift there. I've given a few talks since Thursday, and even though our the reality of this organization is that we are going to knock on doors for whomever it is. The Supreme Court decisions have told us that the stakes are high and higher than we all thought before them, and Joe Biden's performance has told us that the hill to climb is steeper, but neither of them have impacted the fact that we need to go out there and knock on doors. What is true is that we know we probably need to knock on more doors. We need to take more trips. I will say that depending on what Joe Biden's choice is, it could make that easier or more difficult for us. But bet some folks want to hear what we think. Any of you feel like you want to say what you think should happen? Who you go with you first? Do you have an opinion, sir? I haven't even asked you
On
about this.
on Biden
Yeah.
stepping down or not? But personally, I don't think he should. There are 124 days until election day, right? With early voting in a bunch of different states, it's even less than that. With all the operations, all of it failed off. Like everything, the strategy is created around him. The messaging, like everything is created around him being president, running for re-election. So for me, it's less about the individual, whether I like Biden, how much I like his policies, whether it's domestic or foreign, doesn't matter. More about, do I realistically think changing your candidate 120 days before election will get you a better result? Like, I don't think so. I think with our partisanship, people are still gonna vote Trump, the ones who really want to vote for Trump. And the people who are in the middle, which is getting smaller and smaller, I feel like if this decision with the Supreme Court laying out the pathway for him becoming dictator, like if that's not going to wake you up and it's not going to scare you and it's not going to get you to not vote for him, I don't think another necessary candidate like Harris is not going to do that. Biden dropping out of a race and Harris becoming the candidate or something is not going to do that. So what I would love to see is Biden doing more of what he did on Friday, come out with energy,
Sure.
and come out swinging.
Okay. Okay. Ben, you have a quick opinion on that, even though you
Yeah.
haven't been reading the news.
Yeah,
I'm
I think I'm
joking.
more, it's true. Yeah, I have opinion on everything I don't know about. So I'm more pragmatic about it because right now it seems to be more that like the party is panicking and the media is picking up on it than it is about Biden or this hypothetical candidate. I feel like they need to get this over quickly one way or another because the more we spend on this, the more resources is going to get wasted on this.
Yeah.
And the more unified the Democratic Party appears to be, is how we're going to win strategically and on the ground. So if the party is split and they're going to take time being split, I think that's more detrimental in the long run than Biden doing whatever he's going to do or whatever candidate might step up to the plate.
Totally. My quick take is that if people have been saying that you're not voting for Biden, you're voting for his administration, or you're voting for his team, then maybe the team will carry any candidate. And if the Supreme Court decisions are strong enough and Trump himself are strong enough things that signal that will get people to vote against Trump, then actually that's another negative towards Biden as well. The last thing I'll say on that is that I actually started thinking about other candidates. Like I started to look at who they were and how I thought they could run and watch some of their videos. And this is the short list of Kamala and Gavin, and Gretchen, and Pete. And actually, the interesting thing, like this, so data analysis aside, there's all kinds of polling on stuff. I actually started to get excited about supporting some of these people, or and imagining them on the debate stage with Trump. I actually started to feel excited about that, and I think that if I feel excited about that, then I wonder how kind of run-of-the-mill voter would feel with these folks as the top of the ticket, fighting for democracy. So, not to say I've landed anywhere, but I've definitely moved. Okay, since the last podcast that I did with David, which, by the way, is still worth listening to because there's a lot of content in there about how to intake information as it's coming to us, rapidly, and some key individuals that David counts on for analysis. So these two podcasts together, it's a good, interesting journey. Only a few days away that CP has traveled. But outside of all of this, we're still going to be knocking on doors. We're still going to be traveling. Puya, Ben are leading a bunch of that work. What's the call to action this week, Ben?
Is to join us. Go on, sign up for a state team if you haven't already. And you can do that by going on our website, commonpower.org, and then clicking volunteer. And I swear to God, if you click on any button, it'll take you to signing up for a team. That's how we design this, and let us know if that's not what happens, all right? If you click on find action, it'll take you to a team. Be a volunteer will take you to a team. Volunteer resources will take you to a team.
Yes.
Get signed up on a team.
Okay. And on that note too, there's a question from the community. This is kind of a touchy subject a little bit, but Walker, is there going to be a team Georgia? Ooh, yeah. What happened? We took Georgia off the map. What happened? We set it aside for now. Why'd we do that?
Yeah, so originally we were thinking to go through with Georgia, actually. We wanted to have a state team around it, but what we have done this year is take a holistic look at what's happening across the country and not just focus on the presidency and go beyond that. Take a look at the Senate, take a look at the House, and even take a look at the state legislatures where actually our work comes most helpful to those candidates because those elections are so close. But it's another conversation. In Georgia specifically, I know in 2020 it was the state, right? But this year, the only
in
actually
2022
and in 2022, right? So this year, unfortunately, there's not actually as much happening. Aside from the presidency, they do not have a Senate race. On the other hand, their U.S. House, all of their districts are gerrymandered, so there's no competitive seats. All of them are already decided, and most of the incumbents running, they're going to win. And also their state legislature is also gerrymandered. So that's why we need to win federal level races to be able to change those gerrymandered maps and go to Georgia and other states to change their state legislators and get a shot at their U.S. House seats. But aside from the presidency, there's really nothing else that we could really contribute to. So
yeah, so the way we calculate is when we knock on one door, we want to knock on one door for the presidency, a Senate race, a U.S. House race, and a state legislature race. If we can do that, because then we get the most bang for our buck. So that's why Georgia has been taken off the map now. It could get put back on depending on if we have resources. Another call to action: donate to us. Maybe we'll spin up Georgia again if we can spare the teams. Georgia's still an important state for Joe Biden. Well, right now for Joe Biden, but for the presidency for sure. Puya helps with a lot of the analysis on building that map out. So wanted to get his take on that. Okay. So that's our question from the community. We'll stay tuned on Georgia. Ben, let's close it out. What's our one thing?
Okay, so the one thing question for our episode today. Imagine it's fall. So this is fall weather, climate, right?
Good setup.
Okay. All right. So what is the one article of clothing that you would pack on every trip that you wouldn't leave without? So
okay. One
Okay.
article of clothing
One article of clothing, your one article of clothing that you would always
for
pack
the fall.
for the
This is not
fall.
like underwear,
Yeah.
right? Like,
No,
okay,
no. It's like part of your fit. If you didn't pack underwear, I would be concerned. Or like
okay,
socks, you know what I mean?
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'll start. I have these cargo pants that are just like really nice, and like foldable. So like they're lightweight and so they can just be shoved into a luggage without taking up too much room. They have a lot of pockets and they're in this neutral kind of like grayish, reddish color.
No,
What?
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 You literally wore those to Nevada.
Yeah, but like they also work for
Okay,
They're
fall.
you gotta choose
versatile,
it.
you know.
Yeah, they're versatile, but yeah, that's exactly why I bring them. Yes,
You
they
called
Also,
work.
out the
all pants are
season.
foldable. You mentioned your pants are foldable. All of them are foldable,
I
but
said
it's
very
another.
foldable. Some pants are
Okay, I don't know
clunky,
what that
okay?
means. Okay,
Packable. How about that? Better?
there we
Packable?
go. Much
Packable.
better. Yeah.
All right.
You might have to come
Okay.
back to Ben. She might have to choose something else. Leah,
No,
what's your
stop.
fall specific
Mm-hmm.
clothing item according
Um,
to our moderator, our question moderator?
I would say either a hoodie or several hoodies, because
Several?
definitely need that. Several hoodies, and also a rain jacket, just in case,
Please, it's called
depending on
one
the
thing.
states.
It's called one thing. The segment is
One
called
hoodie,
one
a
thing.
black hoodie.
Okay.
Yes, my CP Common Power black hoodie.
We
I have
have
one.
black common power hoodies.
I do not know, but I have one. I don't know if you have one or not.
Wow, Leah has one of the rare black common power hoodies. Mine is a vest, is a black packable vest that I like to bring because in the fall the weather changes dramatically sometimes, and you gotta layer. Ben, do you want to take another shot at something that you bring that's unique to the fall?
No. I said what I said.
Good.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like somebody who um is gritty. That sounds like
No,
somebody
that's somebody
who's
who
with a
shops
lot of grit.
well. Who shops
That's
well.
what they would say.
Okay.
But it's a compliment, Ben. You being having a lot of grit is a compliment. And
Thank you.
yes, thank you for your grit and your determination. You're gonna need a bunch of that over the next few months. Puya, thank you for joining us on with CP. Join our Slack if you haven't already, please. Puya is going to be dropping notes in there. Now that he's caught the bug, he's going to be telling everyone what he thinks all the time, especially over these next few days as the decisions continue to come out. Well, as the analysis of the decisions and as Biden makes his next big decision. Thank you all for joining. We'll see you next week. Look at Our Common Power on all the socials. Listen to this podcast on our website. If you're listening already, then you know how to find it. I don't know why do we end with this? Keep listening.
Share
Keep
this
listening to this
podcast.
podcast.
Share this
Share the
podcast.
podcast.
There you go.
We're really good at ending this.
All right.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye.